Available data from the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, shows that in the 2019 election, youth accounted for 28% votes in the presidential election and 29% votes in the governorship election, despite the large population of youth in the country. It seems Nigerian youth are now ready to change the narrative of poor participation in political matters, as recent data from INEC says 75% of newly registered voters are youth. The youth have been making their voices heard, stating that the 2023 general election, especially the presidential election, will be different from the others, as they are ready to use their votes to cause the change they desire. Joining us now is the president and founder, Social Intervention Advocacy Foundation, and CEO, Alias Media Communications Limited, Segun Awosanya, alias Segalink. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Right. I know you have followed the data, seen the level of numbers. 75%, over 8 million of number of youth were said to have registered to vote in the 2023 elections. Now, talk to us. What, from your point of view, perhaps informed this rise that we see in the numbers?
Yeah, thank you very much. If you hear most of the youth speak, they will tell you that we want to use the spirit of the NSAS, to apply ourselves and contribute to the political process by ensuring that the demands of the youth, of the people, which the youth, which has the highest number of population in terms of making up the 70% of Nigerian population today, that they want to make their voice heard and they want to do something about that. And with that, political awareness over the years, if you look at from 2015 down till date, has increased because of the willingness of the youth to participate in political issues, because they know how it has impacted them across socio-political strides. So with that, you were seeing more people willing to pay the price and to go through the hurdles of getting involved in that process. But again, apart from the numbers, because in this climb, we are used to the semantics, we're used to the optics other than the substance. I, for one, believe that, well, the outcome is good in terms of more registrations. Again, but the most important thing to me as someone who is partly driving this force is the commitment to the finishing of that desire. And number one, and secondly, the mindset, the why and the hows within that particular drive. It is not just about we rising in numbers to say we want to do something, because when you want to look for the truth, really, you don't count heads. It is not about the numbers. It's about the reason and rationale behind that particular drive. Are we looking at participating in election and making critical decisions that will actually bring about change? Or is it just for the optics of, oh, here we are, we're a crowd, we're a mob, and we are doing something, regardless of the quality of what we're doing as against the quantity of people doing that particular thing? So it takes more. There's still time for that energy to be channeled towards the change that we love to see. For example, the youth coming together to say, we are actually using this election as a referendum to the powers that be, that things will not continue to be the norm as usual. This is not about tearing down, the institutions or tearing down things that are more or less cultural and more or less structures of the state that actually defines us as a people. But it's about showing our capability to use innovation, to apply our education to bring about the kind of change that we hope to see, so that the society will actually mirror us in the here and the now when compared to the Committee of Nations. So this is exactly where my personal drive is all about, and that's the mindset behind the NSAS advocacy itself, which brought about the awareness of youth participation in politics.
Right.
The numbers, 78% or 75%. It looks big, but it's about 8 million. And when you look at the total number of votes, it's about 96, it's over 96 million. 8%, 8 million is not even up to 10% of the total number of are we making too much of it, given that even the majority of those who will vote, given even the statistic, is still not the youth?
Well, no, the way I want to put it, I wouldn't want...
Because sometimes statistics, I said, they say numbers like words or like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That sometimes when we look at figures, we tend to overplay it. Because when we look at the 75%, it turns out to be 8 million, it's not up to 10%. And even the 10%, that 10%, we're not even sure that they will get 75% of that 75%, if I make sense.
I get what you're trying to say, but
yes.
We must not underestimate that drive. And this is why I say so. It is not just about the numbers. Think of the influence. We live in a post-modernistic environment now, which means we're not actually seeing things the way they are on the surface. We're looking at the in-depth. For example, you don't buy things simply because you saw a billboard. You buy things simply because of the influences around that particular product. If you're somebody you've trusted for over 20 years, 30 years tells you, oh, this toothpaste is good, it makes you grow more teeth. So you basically want to buy it because of the recommendation, not because of the advert you saw or because of the billboard. When you're looking at that percentage that seems small, think of the influences of that percentage. Think of the people who are dependent on this youth for income. Think of the people who are actually inspired by these people who are making this drive. They are going to influence a lot of things.
Those youths are actually those who are influenced rather than those who are influencers.
But the issue about influence and
yeah, because many of them don't even have jobs. Many of them don't have. Many of them are in the homes of their parents. So they tend to be more under influence than being influencers.
Well, the thing is this: when you look at it this way, like I said earlier, I said we're in a postmodernistic environment, and to postmodernism itself, it is about the simulation of the simulation. In other words, people prefer, rather than face reality, which looks like spikes to their bubble, they rather want to see the world through the eyes of other people, which is what happened before we became modernized, where people go to concerts to watch movies that talks about stage plays that talks about a society and culture. They tend to look at paintings of famous artists that picture the world in a certain way. So the same way right now, people are trying to see the world because of the modernism now, because of we have a lot of technologies, means through which different things can be seen from different perspectives. So to be able to say this is actually the real position of things is always very difficult because you have an explosion of meaning, out there. And for the youth who are easily impressionable, for the youth who are easily influenced, they get to,
you agree they get influenced.
Yeah, well, they get influenced, but they also influence.
Among themselves, they don't influence, they can't influence the bigger population. The influence is actually in their own bubble.
I would not say, like I said, I will not underestimate the drive.
I'm not saying that you should underestimate.
Yes, what I'm saying that number you are saying, it's just like you saying, look at the size of a grenade. It's so small compared to the large number of people we have here. If that grenade goes off, we will all be impacted.
Yeah, but the grenade is not the same thing as the bunker buster.
At the same time, again.
I guess they are getting to that.
Yeah, we're getting to that. But the other question, sorry, Veronica, the other question I want to have you been able to break down this in terms of geography, these numbers, this 8 million in terms of geography, and then look at the bigger picture of youth, other than this 8 million, those who have already registered in the past? Do you have that figure?
The issue is this: when you're looking at numbers and when you're studying human behavior, you see the psychology of Nigerians, the reason why we make decisions, most of them are not rational. They are more or less influenced certainly by some semantics, certainly by certain socio-cultural, events and the rest and all. So we must not cast in stone what has happened before. Oh, APC has so numbers, PDP has so numbers.
No, that's not my question. My question is...
I understand what I say, that what are the expectations from these numbers?
No, not expectations. What is the demographic? Demographic. For instance, when you say 8 million, how many from the north? How many from the southeast? How many from south-south? How many from the southwest? That's what I mean. middle belt.
Yeah,
and so how hard this spread,
yes.
these numbers. And then you compare them to what we already have. In the, we had about 84 million in 2019.
Yeah.
Now, what's this spread compared to that spread of the 84 million?
I don't have the specific figures, but from what I saw, I've gone through those figures before, and I don't think it's skewed to a particular region. I think it's a general thing. The spread is quite encouraging.
Even.
Yes, quite even. Yes, in the northwest, north central, northeast, southeast, southwest, we have significant new entrants into the political participation that falls into the demographic of the youth. So whether the regional skew or the regional spread itself is not, it does not really speak to the decision that people are going to make. But again, you understand also that young people actually behave along the same pattern. So which is why, one of the reasons why, which is why we need. The only
NSAS, they didn't behave in the same pattern. Why they were saying that they didn't want NSAS here, those in Plateau and in the north, they said they love NSAS.
I will explain why. No, I will explain why.
They love SARS, that they wanted it. So it became a national division.
It wasn't a dichotomy and it wasn't a divide. And I will say this, because for every action you see or anything you see out there, you need to trace the pathology of that particular outcome. And the pathology of that decision that you are seeing as a dichotomy is just to show you the extent of work that has been done in the north and the south. And also to show you the traditional and cultural differences between the notion or training of the people in both regions. And I explain this. The activity or the advocacy in the north, as it were, actually went through institutional corridors whereby police and the structure itself were the kind of changes we have in the north were so different from the ones we have in the south. And the experience of the northern youth with the police were different from what we have here.
Exactly. So
it wasn't an happenstance. So because of things that have been
that's what I'm saying, that they're not the same.
So exactly. So they are saying they don't want to end SARS. Does not mean they did not acknowledge the fact that there are institutional issues.
Yeah, but they saw it differently. They saw it differently.
Well, we all have different experiences.
That's what I'm saying. Then you said they're all going to...
But it wasn't a division.
Yeah.
All right. Let's stay on the matter now. Because my concern has to do with the issue of the drive that you mentioned earlier, because sustaining it to the end and achieving a result that youth can boast and say that we achieved something. At least we cut our teeth for something. Now, because when you look at the NSAS matter, we saw how it ended at the end of the day. And yes, perhaps that could have triggered what we are seeing now. But when you look at the elections in Osun and Ekiti State, we didn't feel as much impact of the youth in this election. What you see are the middle-aged and the aged coming out to vote. And the question is, where really are these people that, we hear are making the noise on social media? It's beyond that. You need to be part of the process. And now we are heading towards a presidential election and other elections come 2023.
Yeah, you ask a very wonderful question. And I would like to answer it both from the cultural perspective and from the enlightened perspective, and also where we are. This is a journey. We cannot say, because of the outcome of Ekiti and Osun, that the drive that the youth are talking about or they are drumming for, should be defined or can be defined.
But that should have been perhaps a starting point.
Yes, and that's why I said this is a journey. And the journey does not end in, you can't judge the journey from the beginning. And I say this respectfully because where we are now, when you look at there's something called the OODA loop. The OODA loop speaks to, number one, the observation of what we have on ground. That is the collection of data, analytics of that particular data that we're looking at. When you look at the orientation of that particular data, which speaks to framing the data in the context of trying as much as possible to get as much as we can from that data to be able to say, this is what we have gathered. This is based on our education. This is what we have seen. Based on our knowledge, this is what we have. Based on culture, this is what we can decipher from there. Then you now move into the decision-making thing, the strategy. Right now on the journey of the youth's awareness, they have shown that they are interested in participating in the election, meaning you are not going to see a poor turnout. at the end of the day. They've collected their PVC, they've gone through the motions and the rest. Now, we are at the point where they are educating themselves on how to get involved. It is not about joining a political party or picking a demigod for themselves to say this is who we are going to worship. It is about looking at their impact itself, the end goal of the impact. Like, I will still come to the issue of how NSAS ended up, because I want to know whether it's the NSAS advocacy you're talking about or the youth's perception of what they have done, their own participation in it. So I will tie the whole thing together. So where they are now is at that point where they are putting things together. They've seen the outcome in Ekiti, a state that we know has been producing professors for years. And at the end of the day, the turnout of the election and the people who participated majorly went into a transaction. They sold their votes majorly. Because when you have
from your point of view, evidence of that.
From your point of view,
evidence of that at all.
From your point of view, because you can't make
you don't have any that claim.
Here.
That the majority want majorly.
We have people
so that we do not
who monitored the election.
Yes,
we got the report from different places.
Right.
And there were evidence of transactional.
There were evidence of how big was it. That's what I'm saying. To tilt the election. That issue has been raised.
If you don't have that evidence right now.
That's what I'm saying. The numbers are out there, and the truth is always out there. Right. So what I'm trying to say now is, because of the outcome of Osun and Ekiti, we cannot conclude to say, oh, these are just noise. Because there is still room. We have months to go before the election for them to begin to weaponize their involvement in this election by saying, we are focusing on competence. We are focusing on conscientiousness. We are focusing on capacity. We are focusing on, and besides, beyond the presidential election, we're also looking at those who are stampeding to power at the Senate and at the House of Representatives.
But it seems they are not looking at that. They are just focused on the presidential election.
You see, what I'm saying is, this is a journey. I will be the last person that will write off the youth of Nigeria.
We are not writing them off.
We should not overstate.
We should manage our expectations.
Yes, that's what I understand. We should not overstate.
That is why.
Because even in the U.S., during the election for both Trump, the one that Trump won, and Biden, the issue of youth registration was also a factor. And they said, oh, the youths were going to really make a difference. But it's the same thing. When it came to the brass tacks, the number, well, ticked up, but not by much.
That is
because there's also the youth have they are more interested in the flare. FLAIR than the FLARE, the flare, the fire than the.
Well, I believe that
the optics.
What we are saying now actually is a challenge to the youth to begin to recalculate their coordinates, to begin to strategize. They should prioritize strategy other than the spectacle.
When you say they should strategize, how do you strategize? During the NSAS, they didn't do much of it. The NSAS protest. Hold on. The NSAS protest. Yes. Well, that's what we mean when we say NSAS.
No, that's not what the NSAS means.
No. When people say NSAS, they sometimes use what they call synecdoche, that a part represents the whole. You know, somebody say NSAS. People at some point, people generally to mean, okay, the NSAS generation, the NSAS people, the NSAS. Anyway, you know what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
And what I'm saying is that they started and the whole thing looked very good. And when it got to the crunch, there was no leadership, there was no coordination, there, so on. And then the dross of the youth, the scum of the youth took over from the cream of the youth. You can imagine how you have a good piece of cake, and you pick a cake, and a child comes in and vomits, a baby comes in and vomits on top of it. That is what happened to the NSAS protest. So when you are talking about they moving together, they have to be coordinated. They don't have anything. They couldn't even. I thought that given the enthusiasm they had that time, by this time they could have organized something like a political movement or a party or something like that. We're not seeing it.
Sir, let me correct something. I spoke about postmodernism earlier.
You are so interested in that word.
No.
It means a lot of things.
I know it is impacting us. It is impacting us because what you're seeing now is a mirage of what is real. And what is real, which I will give to the youth of this nation, was the fact that what has been left redundant for over 90 years, Police Act, was fixed because of the youth participation. Today we have police at 2020, before the protest. So a lot of things were achieved by the coordination and collaboration of the youth before the protest. The protest was just a means of the youth putting flesh in the game by saying, we are not just dialoguing because we are weak. We are not just dialoguing and meeting people and engaging the authorities because we don't know how to come out and take over the streets. They did that, and of course, in everything, there are extremist views to things. You understand?
So thing was taken over. They started burning things.
We understand, and we condemn that.
Right.
So that's how it ended. That was it. They said,
that's how the protest ended.
All is well that ends well. Didn't end well.
Protest
for us
is
not
a different
to focus our attention on EdSAS because we have to. The focus is on the youth and their participation in the election.
The youth.
How can they build on these numbers to achieve?
That's why I used a model, a framework.
Yeah.
And that framework was designed to be able to help people to take action in crisis situation, which means you need to observe. When you collect data, analyze the data, you also need to orient that data by framing it, with your education, with your knowledge, taking cognizance of culture, and then being able to say, this is how we're going to go about it by making a decision, strategizing, and then taking our strategy to test by putting actions behind it. I believe the youth of the nation will make us proud in this election. I believe they will refocus their energy and strategize, and I believe they will be able to say, this is the end result of the Nigeria of our dreams based on our participation, having taken a cue from what we have heard, the challenges thrown at us, even on TVC News.
Do you think that, from what you have seen, do you think they have the capacity to do all of this that you have mentioned, strategizing? Because when it comes to the Nigerian politics, you have to be really strategic to get anything you want to get.
As I said earlier on, I will not conclude now because this is still a journey. And I believe that if you do not train them, you don't blame them. If we get involved, those people who can actually engage the youth. Right now, they are throwing tantrums, they are abusing people, they are doing all sorts of things. Some of them are even misguided and the rest. But I think this is based on their experiences, where they are allowing their emotions to cloud their judgments and all. But that phase will pass. When they know what is at stake, when they know the fact that 2023 is critical to nation building, is critical to the growth of this nation, is critical to job creation, is critical to security, is critical to quality education, is critical to the unity of Nigeria in its diversity, then they will begin to see things in a different light. And I think we all need to be involved in guiding their energies.
How involved are you?
I am very involved because I can never stop getting involved. I'm a father, I'm a parent, I'm a leader, and I'm a citizen of this country. Regardless of where we go, we have the noble places like Nigeria.
Okay.
So
we have 96%, 96 million.
Yes.
What's the percentage of youth in the 96 million?
We need to probably examine INEC record.
We don't know that yet.
We don't know that yet. But again, you know that the energy of this country lies in the hands of people between the ages of 18 and 35. Mm-hmm. And they are the ones that...
But the electoral experience all over the world has shown that demographic is not the majority that votes. The majority is usually between 40. And upwards, 75. Those are the people that really vote. So the energy may be there, but
it shows there's a missing link. Something is missing.
Something is missing, which is going to be filled over time.
You know, there's this Chinese proverb that says that when I was old, I didn't have the strength. When I was young, I didn't have the wisdom. So it looks like they have the strength, but we hope they will show the wisdom.
That is why we're saying that nation building involves the wisdom of the old and the energy of the youth. There are people who are matured, who are educated, who are enlightened within that gap, and they will do the needful to be able to direct and channel the energies of the rest.
I really admire your enthusiasm.
The youth participation, their capacity, and all of it, and the fact that you mentioned that they throw tantrums and just make certain statements on the social media, which can be termed as cyberbullying, especially at this period. Yeah. And one wonders what that means for you, for youth that you are hoping or believing that will be able to do something or deliver in the 2023 election, who are throwing all these tantrums.
You see, when people have, we have a lot of people within that fold, who believes it's an opportunity for them to throw their hands in the air and act as though they don't care, and it's an opportunity for them to show that, oh, we're on the bandwagon and we're going to, maybe gain followers and gain a notoriety or establish our notoriety through this particular thing. And they did it during the NSAS as well. And because of this misguided few, most of whom have been traced to different hate groups in the country. And I will know because I've been there. I've been at the crosshairs of these people before. And I've written a lot of things about it, even in the papers, in the national papers. And I felt that when you're running for political office, you are not a superstar, neither are you a celebrity. You are a leader who is offering himself for service to the people. And when you do that, you carry on your leadership strides by influencing the kind of, or the mood of the support that you get. It is within your power because it is because of you, or probably connected to you, the attraction or the support is based on what you stand for. So if you see element of things that your campaign movement does not represent, you have the right and the duty to stand up to say, this is not what we are for. This is not what we stand for. We are not dividing the nation. We are bringing people together. And we cannot continue in this, strife. If you see anybody doing things like A, B, C, D, E, they don't represent us. By the time you disown them and you distance yourself from such, people will begin to seek, the understanding. And they will begin to say, no, this man doesn't stand from this. They will begin to support you, even based on the stance you've taken, which could actually cost you support. Mm-hmm. And that is exactly what I did during the NSAS, by saying, no, this is going out of line. This is not what we are created for. This is not what this thing was designed for. And this is not what I'm going to stand for. So, and I risk the chances of losing face at that time if I'm doing it for popularity. Right. But it wasn't for popularity, it was for substance. Yeah. So now when I see people in the name of politics turn a political movement into an identity politics of hate, seeking to divide the nation, creating a semblance of division, ethnic, us versus them and the rest, then he speaks to something different. It shows we actually don't hate tyranny. We just hate the fact that it's not our man that is, oppressing us.
There was one time during the John McCain quest for the presidency when there was a racial moment in the campaign when he started saying, who is Barack Obama? Who is Barack Obama? And people saw some ethnic reverberations inside what he was saying. Yeah. And then it caught up with his followers. And one woman came and started, and also a young man who turned out to be a black man, started saying terrible things about Obama. John McCain withdrew and came on television to say Obama is a nice man. So in a sense, he held down the capacity of that group to go out of control. That's the kind of thing we need. And you are talking about it happened during the time. The opposite happened during the nationalist struggle between Zeke and the Zikist movement. That Zeke had to disown his own movement.
Exactly.
At one time, because he thought that they were going about. So people said he was disowning him because he was being cowardly. He didn't want to stand for the truth. Well, that is a matter for historical analysis. But in your own role, how do you tell these people it is good to vote, it's good to come out to vote, but it's good to do everything. The Bible says, do everything orderly, in decency and in order. So how do you navigate moving vote? Because these are young people. Youth is a time, according to Plato, youth is a time for every extraordinary toil.
Yeah. Actually, the thing is, we just have to be more tolerant. If you want them to be tolerant, you have to be tolerant also to them, because a lot of them, when you hear from them, I was on a forum earlier on where someone came to me to say, Mr. Sega, we appreciate what you're doing. Don't mind all the tantrums being thrown at you. Don't mind it's not hate. It may look like one. All the tantrums, they are throwing it at you because they respect you. They regard you. They know you stand for something. They are not calling out their parents, who is not even known, who has no name out there, who has no name recognition. They are calling you out because your name is out there. You have a column in the newspaper. People listen to you when you speak, and they hope that you are going to at least see from their own perspective. So we need to show tolerance to an extent of saying, I feel you. I hear you. I understand what you're saying. But can we, at least, rather than telling a child to stop throwing stones because of the danger it might cause, why don't you direct that child and say, aim at that? So that's precisely what they need now. Understanding and inclusiveness.
Yeah, how do we do that? How do we do that? Because in today's world, there are so many fora. There are people who live in a bubble.
Exactly.
You know, if you are in the social media, you can believe that the group you are in represents the whole world, whereas you are just a little part of the whole piece. And let everybody know. People tend to be talking at each other rather than talking with each other. And how do we get to that point? Because it's getting to a situation where we need some kind of leadership, and that starts from the political society actually. And the political leaders to say, this is how we should go, this is not the way we should go, and so on.
When you say political leaders, I would like to extend it a little bit by including those we regard as those who are the custodians of societal behavior, which includes yourself. So people who people respect and people listen to, who have some form of influence. I'm talking about real influence now, not the bubble of social media. Social media people often believe that everybody on social media is their mate. Everybody on social media know what they know, and anything they don't know doesn't exist. So with that, you need to understand where they are, and then education, with the cutest, the most reserved patience that you can ever muster as a father, as a leader, and also while you are encouraging other people, our pastors, the people who own churches, the people who are in the mosque, the people who are religious leaders, musicians, entertainers. These are people that people listen to. When they begin to speak the same language, if we sing from the same hymn book, we can fix the problem that we're seeing today.
I remember I had an instance, there was an instance in which somebody called me and he said, I just saw on Twitter one young man who abused you. I had to call him. He said, who are you? This guy, I know you. Who do you know who you are insulting because you have a platform? You can go and insult him. Then another person also actually replied the person. The other person who she knew on the social media, and she said, do you know who you are insulting? I know who you are. Why are you doing that? You get a sense that the social media is breaking down our culture.
Well,
with the youth, yes.
It can be seen as that because a lot of people who are more or less adults, who are more or less educated, who are more or less exposed, who are more or less enlightened, when they see those tantrums, they avoid it. They don't want to be abused. They don't want to be insulted.
But not only the youth that do it.
No,
a lot of older people do it. I've seen older people use very terrible language, abusive language.
It shows the limitation of the exposure.
People are over 50.
It shows the limitation of the exposure. Yeah. Because when you understand the fragility of our nation right now, you will know that it is worth the sacrifice for people who have seen, who can see the end from the beginning, to begin to see how they can actually solve that crisis. Because in crisis, opportunities are abound. So we need to be more tolerant. Because there's no how we can pack most of these people away and then disenfranchise them and say they are no longer citizens of this country.
Not at all.
So we have to continue to engage with patience. I am a victim of a lot of these things. And I'm sure a lot of people will be wondering, why is Sega speaking like this? This is an opportunity to use your moral cudgel to break the head of a few people. But you see, at times, you realize that a time will come when we will not have this opportunity to speak to Nigerians using this kind of forum, and we will have children who will walk this earth when we're not alive.
Absolutely.
Do we need a conference? Do we need a conference, something like political parties coming together to talk about
that must happen across board. All political parties and their leaders.
Social media to Nigerians.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And make use of it as an opportunity for political parties too.
Yeah.
Right, so we have to leave the conversation here now. President and founder, Social Intervention Advocacy Foundation and CEO, Aliens Media Communication Limited, Segun Awosanya, Segalink. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
On the program.
Thank you, ma'am.
Segalo.
Segalink.
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 Yes, some people used to talk about Sagalo.